All right, thanks everyone. Today for our Allopathic Medical School case study session, we have two schools represented. We have Dr. Seth Politano, the Associate Professor of Medicine in the Department of Internal Medicine at Keck School of Medicine, USC, and Katie Girton Davis, Undergraduate Medical Education Admissions Manager from Oregon Health and Science University in Oregon. So I want to welcome both Seth and Katie to our session. We really appreciate the time that you're going to spend with us today talking about applicants, and we're going to learn a lot. So Seth, you are first up. We're going to talk a little bit about each school first. They're going to talk about case studies. We'll move to the second school. We'll have a chance for a little bit of question answering, but really we are listening and learning to our panelists. Thank you so much for participating. Seth, it's all you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So I have been at Keck School of Medicine of USC for 12 years and been involved in various parts of the admission process for the last 7 years, screening, evaluation, recruitment, and selection. So I'm very familiar with the process and love that we're able to take in an outstanding class every year. And I'm so excited that I'm able to participate in being able to get our excellent students matriculated into our school. So just a little bit about our Keck School of Medicine. So we really, we advertise this a lot. We say it on our admissions day for our applicants that are invited to interview, that we are a private school with a public mission. And I wanted to lead with that because that public mission component of it is a very key thing we're looking for in our applicants at the Keck School of Medicine. We were founded with the idea of providing health to the underserved communities in which the med school is located. So that is a predominant thing that we are looking for in our applicants, to have that devotion, commitment, desire to do community service in any aspect, but obviously in healthcare in the future is what we look for. The AMA has recognized the Keck School of Medicine's admission processes as a model medical school because we really do look into getting a diverse student body, matriculate students that are interested in helping the underserved, and the fact that we offer a lot of scholarships to underrepresented people in medicine that need that assistance, especially when they want to work in an underserved area. We have many combined degrees that you can see that applicants usually put on their application when they first apply, but after they're accepted to the MD program for the MPH and MBA portions, they could apply to those later on. We have a very strong curriculum that focuses on social justice and public health and the social determinants health and health equities. So once again, something we're looking for in our applicants. We look for research because we do have a combined research component, even though it's not required on application. Our curriculum is really based on a lot of collaboration, teamwork. From the first day, our students are subdivided into learning groups. So we look very heavily on the application for students that we think would fit well into that. And then we obviously ask a lot about that during interview day. We have a very important wellness program. We teach a lot about resident wellness and resilience in our curriculum. From the second week of coming onto our campus, our students are exposed to clinical care at a variety of sites, but in their first 2 years, all of their clinical care is with the underserved. Very diverse patient background, very diverse socioeconomic status, a lot of different cultures and cultural views of health. And then very exciting for us, our new entering class starting very soon is starting with our new curriculum. So that will be extremely exciting for us, as I know a lot of schools have gone into. So we'll see how that goes, but I'm sure it'll work well because we have a lot of more early clinical exposure in the new curriculum. Just a little bit about the application process. I don't want to go too much into the detail except for one portion of it, but 3 letters of recommendation is what we make a strong recommendation for. It says we only want 3 letters of recommendation or a committee letter. We say that multiple times, and that number is very important. You'll see why soon. We do have a secondary application, which I will spend a little bit of time talking about, and then 3 processes that are not really unique to our school: screening, evaluation, and recruitment, and selection. Screening, our screeners have access to the entire application. Our evaluation and recruitment committee is essentially our interview committee, but we like to recruit as we interview. That's one-on-one with a faculty and a student, completely closed file at that point. And then we do have a selection committee that is combined of students and faculty. And at that point, it is completely open file with access to all interview comments, academic record, but they do not see screener score or screener comments at that point. We do have this secondary application that I said it is sent to all applicants. There are very unique questions. I don't want to say them all, but they are readily found on the internet if needed. They do change yearly. And the key point of our secondary application is it really does assess the non-cognitive domains, and it really does get us to know the applicant better, whether or not they're going to be a great fit for Keck School of Medicine and whether or not we're going to be a good fit for them. It's important for both of us to make that we have that mutual liking of each other. We tell our applicants, please answer honestly, please be themselves, let their personalities shine through. And to give you two examples that we have used and haven't changed for a while, what's the most fun you've had lately? And that is really a way to see have the applicant's personality shine through. And then an important question that we have too is what do we see that they think the role of a physician is in public health? Because once again, strong component of our med school is the underserved, service commitment, public health in general. So we do want to assess that on the application process. Any questions before I go into the two case studies so far? I don't have access to the chat, Jenny, on my presenter view. So if anything comes up,
Will do. Let's dive in.
Okay, we'll dive in. So our first applicant, so the photos are not the photos of the actual applicant, but they are representative examples. And once again, you'll see why a little bit later, why I have some photos. So our first applicant comes from the University of Michigan. You can see that she is from Oakland, Michigan. She majored in sociology, minored in French studies. You can see her GPA and MCAT there. They are about our average for our matriculating class for the last 2 years. We have a 3.8 overall GPA. Our MCAT is 518, so she is right around that average. She has a proficiency in Spanish. She speaks it fairly well from time to time, and she is functionally native in Arabic. She never applied before. She has 3 letters of recommendation from her teaching assistant supervisor, her biochem professor, and her biolab professor. They were all good. And then her personal comment, moderately well written. She talks about coming to our country as a refugee and how she started to notice how the refugee community, when she entered, had a lack of access, especially to mental health services. So she started to want to bridge that gap just with mental health services. And then that further led her to a commitment in refugee health, volunteering at different centers for refugees, and then how in the future, how she wanted to do something for refugee communities, whether it's domestically or people seeking asylum in the United States, especially looking at their healthcare. That was kind of the gist of her personal statement. And then, and I'll go back to that in a little bit, but, and then looking at her research. So she has done some research in music therapy, for refugee health. So both helping in the music therapy portion of it and also research looking into music therapy. She has tutored for Schools on Wheels in Detroit, Michigan, which also helps the refugee community. She's been a medical scribe. She has spent time as an interpreter for the Refugee Child Center, and then has also helped for a literacy campaign in Lansing for the entire community. These were some of the key highlights that I pulled out of her very vast experience on her application, but I wanted to point out those key components. So that was it on this applicant. I didn't go through details of my thoughts and our thoughts as we went through this screening process, but maybe this is a good time to open up to any questions about this applicant, or what would you think about this applicant, given a little bit of what I said about USC and our mission and some of our numbers. And I will say too, before I say that, just the components of our class. So 80% of our entering class is from California, 20% outside of California. That really is a big portion of that is because of it's a self-selected population that applies to our school. Majority of our applicants that apply are also from California. So we tend to skew a lot towards, we take in state page residents and people that went to school here, but a lot of that more is because of who applies. Actually, I can see the chat now. So application strong, out-of-state residency, good. Why no letters from her service? So that points out too, good. Not broad enough healthcare exposure. Moderate, what does that mean? Grammar, flow, story itself, kind of flow. Doesn't flow so well, but tells. I mean, it tells a great story, but the grammar of it is not extremely well written. Okay. To demonstrate community service, more clinical exposure to explore and confirm the career interest. Okay, good points. Interest in working with underserved. Great. She didn't consider herself disadvantaged on her application. Letters of rec were on a score of 1 to 5, probably around 3 to 4 total. I don't know about Katie, but most of our letters of rec tend to be very good. In all the years I've been doing this, I found one that had a little bit of a comment that could be interpreted as not so great. They're usually good. We'll want to know why California. Was there an interview? Okay, I'll get to that. Good. We'll want to know why California, definitely. Good. So, once again, we look upon applicants for a variety of factors. And although California, when we're first reviewing an application for California, we tend to look a little bit more into their application. We assume they want to be in California. So I'll let you know that this applicant, we did offer an interview to. There was enough in her application for us as an institution that a lot of the features that everybody pointed out, very good. I don't know why she wants to come to California. I wanted a little bit more clinical exposure. But with that said, there is such a flow in her application regarding the community and community service, even though it's not all healthcare related, that this is somebody that we have a sense that really does have that strong sense to helping the disadvantaged, helping the community, and wanting to do that in healthcare too. I didn't go into it here, but her secondary application also talked about wanting, it had a focus. There's a question on our secondary about anything else more you want to tell us, and she did talk about wanting to work with the underserved in the future. Looking at her application, once residency, we don't always look at it, even though a lot of us come here. As long as you've demonstrated that you've applied to us, we're going to give you a look. Her scores are very good. Our majors don't matter when you apply to us. Actually, that's a very big thing we talk about during the interviews, is why you did your major. It's not something we think about when you come here. The Spanish, we look very favorably upon our applicants that speak Spanish. So even though about half of our matriculating class has a pretty good proficiency in Spanish, our patient population is near 60 to 70% Spanish speaking. So a lot of our applicants that come in that speak Spanish, we find do extremely well here. And they even talk about wanting to work with patients that speak Spanish. So that is something that looks upon favorably in the application. It is a little interesting. She had all this community service and she didn't really have a letter from them. That is something interesting. It could just be maybe she thought she got better letters from these other people that wrote her letters. We like the fact that she followed our directions of 3 letters of recommendation. And then the personal comment, moderately well written. She wasn't born in the States. She came here a couple of years after. Her native language is actually Arabic. So that considered, it was well written for us. And it was the content that we were really blown away by when we looked at it. The fact that she talked about the service commitment. Somebody asked how we picked the 3 letters since in the AMCAS, knowing you put up 10, if I recall. So for us, if you don't follow the directions and you put in more than 3, we only start reading the first 3. That's kind of what we do. So the first 3 that pop up are the first 3 that we read. But we tend to not look favorably if you don't follow those directions, because it's pretty well stated all over, only do 3 letters, but we will only look at the first 3. We also say you can have a committee letter. So if there's a committee letter and another letter, we will only read the committee letter when that pops up as well too. And then regarding her, regarding this case study's activities and experiences, once again, there is this tendency towards a lot of community service. The scribe, I don't know about you, Katie, but so many of our applicants are scribes. I don't want to say I don't look favorably upon it, because a lot of them have so many hours and they have leadership roles in it. And for me and for a lot of us, we look for those that have a lot of leadership roles in the scribing, because so many of them do scribing nowadays. So it's neither a positive or a negative. I'm also looking for if there's a disadvantage. They scribed in a disadvantaged hospital, in other communities. Once again, a lot of her experience that I extracted was community service, and that's something that we look extremely favorably upon. And I want to stress too that even though I said we like our applicants that speak Spanish, majority that enter our school don't speak Spanish, but it is something we look at interestingly. And it's a lot of them that speak Spanish have learned Spanish either from mission work or from working at facilities or working in communities where they spoke Spanish, or they grew up in those communities or wanted to take care of their undergrad was around those communities, so they learned Spanish. And we found that does serve them well, but once again, not an absolute for any of our admissions. So this applicant 1 in this case study, she was offered an interview. She interviewed well. She was offered admission. She initially accepted the admission, and then she declined the admission later on. So this applicant did not enter into our school, but we did really like her. She actually did service the population she said to work with. Exactly. And I mean, our community, we do have refugees that we take care of, but it's a different patient population. It's a lot of immigrants and undocumented that we take care of. But once again, it is that flair of wanting to take care of others that is so evident in our philosophy and our curriculum that we look for that, and it's a thread in a lot of our applicants. Do I have time for the second study, Jenny?
Yeah, if we can do it a little faster, that'd be great. And then we'll get
100%.
to do hers. That'd be great. Thank you.
Of course, 100%. Okay, so second one. All right. So I doctored this photo, but this is very similar to a real photo that we received in our second example of our case study. I was a screener of an applicant that had a photo similar to this, rotated to the left, wearing sunglasses. First impressions are very important, and we want people that follow directions and give a good impression. So immediately seeing this applicant on screening, we would not reject, but we would kind of in our mind think that was kind of a choice. We do ask for a photo when we have our applicants. We like to see a photo. Majored in neuroscience, UCLA, great scores. As you can see, this applicant retook the MCAT with a 517, which is at our average. I'll just say that. From San Diego, fair literacy in French, proficiency, never applied before, 6 letters of rec. These letters were all good and very good. You can see a variety, did research, they're professors, they were a resident advisor, so their supervisor, they worked with a hospice physician, so that was there. He retook, yes, I know, he retook a 517. Was going for that 98th percentile. This is contrast to the first one. This personal comment was extremely well written. It was very eloquent. It flowed extremely well. It was extremely heartfelt. It talked about his brother with a neurologic condition and how it wanted him to enter healthcare, and how he delved into research in the neurosciences, and how he doesn't know if he wants to do that exact field in the future. It was just one of those that really tugged at the heartstrings. It was extremely well written. they submit their photos with their secondary if you find there's any photo causing any unconscious bias. I believe they submit it with their AMCAS, or no, their secondary. Yes, it's with their secondary. An unconscious bias. We are saying at Keck is if you're outside their standard deviation in the negative light, we do not look too favorably upon you. So we just want to make sure it's a photo that we look at least minorly favorably upon. The lighting is good, okay. If it's we have people with their graduation outfit on, it's perfect. The only bias is if you don't follow the directions and you don't look it over like it's rotated, or you look too casual, we don't look very favorably upon that. So I'll just say that that's the major bias that we would look into in that. Then going on to his extracurriculars, so a lot of research in the neurosciences. They did some shadowing in healthcare as a pre-healthcare volunteer at Cedars-Sinai. They were a swim coach for special needs that you can see there. A lot of time as a resident advisor, did some volunteer work in a hospice organization, and then once again was a scribe with a great amount of hours in I'll tell you, a pretty busy emergency room in LA, greater LA County area. So not an easy experience, to say the least. So these are this applicant had a few more that I didn't put in here, but these were the major ones I wanted to highlight in this. So any thoughts on this applicant from the case study? I'll open up the chat. Not many hours. So that swim coach, 14 hours. I liked that community experience. Disability swim coach, fantastic, great community service, 14 hours. I don't know what happened. Of course, I didn't put their comments about it, but there was nothing that said why they only did 14 hours. How polished was the secondary? What came across on the secondary? So the thing on the secondary that I really came across was their commitment to the field of medicine and wanting to be a doctor. No research. So there was this applicant, I keep saying patient because I did patient care earlier today. This applicant did have research experience, but it was in the neurosciences, nothing community service oriented. Very academically qualified, did not follow the letters of recommendation. So once again, when you're not following those letters, we start to think, can you really follow directions, especially combined with that photo? We don't look very favorably upon that as well. And then, yeah, the picture issue, somebody asked about the bias. It's hard to get past that. I screen applicants. If the photo is not great, but your other application is good, I will personally look past the photo, especially if the interview day is okay. And we've accepted applicants with not that great photo, and the professionalism. And that's the thing that we are looking for collaboration. We're looking for underserved. We're looking for community service. We want to make sure you can follow directions and be professional. So errors in the application, things like this, yeah, you can't really look past it. And then Amber just said it, not the mission fit. This applicant, look, he is going to be, his scores, retaking that MCAT, I don't know. If I got a 517 when I took it, I would definitely not retake it. Of course, when I took it, we never had those scores. But this guy is smart. He majored in neuroscience, which UCLA is very hard. He has great research experience. He's going to be a fantastic physician. He is going to be an excellent med student. Looking past these not following instructions, but is he an exact fit for us at USC? Not really. The research, we have a strong research component, but we want that community service commitment. And I'll say the secondary application talked a lot about wanting to help. The public health answer was something about, we should serve our patients, and didn't really go into so much more than that. So we didn't get a strong sense from the secondary on this applicant that they had a strong commitment to community service. And I'll say this applicant, this case study, did not get invited for an interview. And although academically he's extremely strong, he has great research experience, he's from California, we have many other applicants with similar features that have that service commitment. And simply from the sheer number that we offer at admission, we offer interviews for around 850 or so. We have many other in his pool, in his screened pool with his score that would just be a better fit. So that's it. And then, yeah, good point. I mean, look, when you can say you're interested in it, and we have applicants that their secondary application is so great about what they want to do with the underserved, and then you look at it and you really didn't do that much with the underserved. And then similarly too, we have students that apply from like Cal, from Berkeley, that do hundreds of hours with the homeless population there, both in healthcare and not in healthcare. And their secondary will talk a little bit about wanting to do it, but they say they do want to work with it. We're like, hey, you've done the time, you've shown that you want to work with the underserved, you're probably going to continue doing that. So we really do look at both.
Great examples. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And on all my slides, which you can obviously, you have my email, Jenny, obviously anybody can email me any other questions they may have.
Yep, I'll put the email in the chat.
Thank you.
All right, Katie, are you ready?
I am ready. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. My laptop has been a little finicky lately. Okay, so let me pull up my it's not really wanting me to be able to do much. Why? Where are my documents?
You are a co-host, so you should be good to go.
It could just be that I'm not used to working in Zoom. We work in WebEx, so.
Right.
Okay, so I have a screen option. I'm just used to being able to share specific programs. So.
Oh, okay.
Let me make it so that we're not doing a recursive loop here and pull up. Share. Okay, there we go. So
we can see it. Perfect.
Okay,
Thank
excellent. Thanks for inviting me today. My name is Katie Curtin-Davis. I'm the administrative manager for UME admissions at OHSU. I have been with School of Medicine admissions for 14 years. I interview coordinated for the first decade or so. And so I'll go over kind of a little brief bits here. Okay, so a little kind of OHSU in a nutshell. We are Oregon's only allopathic medical school, and it's our school's mission to enhance human health through programs of excellence in education, research, healthcare, and public health for the larger community, including underserved populations. As the only allopathic medical school in the state, we have our missions are very much to training future physicians for Oregon in many ways, which you'll see through some of the things that we talk about. We offer in terms of from admission for dual degrees, the MD, MPH, and MD PhD program. Our students have opportunities to pursue other academic pursuits if they choose to, but those are the three organized dual degree or degree tracks. Our Your MD curriculum launched 5 years ago. It's competency-driven, learner-centered curriculum that features more further integration of foundational and clinical sciences than our previous curriculum, and across all of the years. So our learners have 18 months roughly of the foundational curriculum before taking their USMLE Step 1 exam and then going into the clinical experiences as early as mid-year, second year. Although the early and longitudinal clinical experiences do begin in the first year with their preceptorships, and all of our clinical experiences, they're scattered across hospitals and clinics across Oregon and Southwest Washington. In addition, our students complete a deep dive scholarly project that they work on longitudinally and present in their last year. The OASIS program, that stands for Outreach, Advising, Support, and Identity Formation for Students, is an aspect of our curriculum that just launched in January. And it encompasses pre-medical outreach in addition to life and wellness advising, career advising, and academic advising. And then I put some information about our 2020 entering class. We had a class of 150 students. Last year was 63% women, 21% underrepresented in minority or underrepresented in medicine, 25% from a rural environment, 77% Oregonians, and a mean GPA of 3.68, and I believe a 510 on the MCAT. So our average academics sounds like are a little bit lower. And just to give you a little snapshot of what we of last year. So the 2020 cycle stats ended with that 150 students, started with 6,500 applications, and we did 566 interviews. This 2021 cycle, we had 7,500 applications, and we did 545 interviews. See what next year brings. For our admissions process, we operate on a mission-based holistic admissions process. So we talk a lot about our mission-based groups. They're the specific groups that are given preference into interview screening. Functionally, in the 14 years I've been here, we've never had to go outside of those groups. And they are Oregonians, Oregon Heritage, which is a provost-wide policy that has essentially gives credit to those applicants who are not technically Oregonians for tuition purposes. Either they have not been here long enough to gain residency, or they lost residency, or things like that, but have very specific ties to the state. We also give priority to applicants who are WHSU certified. For anyone who doesn't know, it's the Western Interstate Commission, 15 years and I'll remember it, of higher education. And they, for allopathic medicine, that includes applicants from Montana, Wyoming, and the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands. Since none of those states have an MD program in their state. So, and then our dual degrees, MD, MPH, and MD, PhD. And then the last two categories are those out-of-state applicants with superior academics and experiences, and applicants whose personal experiences demonstrate the ability to overcome adversity and contribute to diversity in the provision of healthcare. So a little bit about our application. We do have a secondary application. We invite all of our applicants to fill it out if they choose to. Applicants have told me that it is a robust secondary application. We ask for 6 short answers in addition to supplemental biographical information and an activities list. Our committee, when they discuss the applicants, they're only semi-open file. So we ask for the activities again because they put it in a format that's brief and snapshotted for the committee to see quickly. And it's worth noting that our interview screeners do see all of the application materials and letters of recommendation. We don't set a maximum. We let AMCAS do that one for us. But we do ask for 3 letters of recommendation or a committee letter or a committee packet. And then our interviewers and committee members are not discussing or viewing information about academic credentials. So all of the materials they see have MCATs, GPA, and grades redacted out of them. We do ask as an optional photo, but we only have it at the time of interview because we do a multiple mini interview circuit in addition to a one-on-one. And so it's really just for people to be able to remember names and faces when they're doing evaluations. And the committee does not see the photos. And I feel like increasingly applicants aren't giving us photos. So we make sure to let the interviewers know to not let that be held against them because we do make a point to say it's optional. The screeners, when they're looking at assessing files, they're considering assessment of motivation for medicine, emotional maturity, life enriching experiences, ability to communicate, and problem solving abilities. While they're looking over the scholastic record, the MCAT scores, the letter of recommendation, they're looking for an understanding and appreciation of healthcare issues. and or interest in biomedical research. It's not a requirement, although obviously those that are applying to our MD PhD program, for them there is an additional commitment to and potential for biomedical research that they're looking for, and an interest in rural health, caring for underserved areas, primary care. They're not requirements per se, but these are sort of the things that make applications stand out. Are there any questions about the process before I start our example? Okay, it's worth noting that the categories that I put up for the kind of the applicant profiles on the first slide, these are the categories that our committee looks at as the headings for their materials. They see some additional information. The committee gets some biographical information from the primary application, the short answers from the secondary, and the activities from the secondary. So I'll go over applicant A. Is from Oregon and an Oregonian for tuition purposes, applying to the MD program. This is from the 2021 cycle, so this was the 4th application for this applicant. A URM from primarily we're looking at community size for that rural background piece, but so this applicant was from a suburban area, 1st generation college student, and she, her pronouns. I just summarized the activities and academic information on here. So she has a bachelor's in psychology from Portland State, and had actually did a bachelor's a number of years ago and then done an AA from Portland Community College in more recent years. You'll see the academics are below our averages. And she had taken the MCAT 5 times. This last cycle was the first year that we, have an eligible score, we were looking at the highest, not the most recent. So she had a 507 as her highest score, having taken the exam that ranged for a few years above and below the minimum of 497. And it's worth noting that this applicant had disclosed a criminal record. It was nonviolent. There was a conviction involved, so there was more information about that in the application. In terms of experiences, she'd had 2 years in 2 different settings as a research, 1 year, this one was together, sorry, I'm trying to remember them. 2 years as a research tech, that one was longitudinal. A variety of shadowing experiences in different clinical settings and different specialties. 4 years working as a clinic tech, that was in different clinics across Portland. Additionally, 6 years in food service, and 4 years of that was in a management capacity. And then 2 short-term voluntary experiences. Not a lot of volunteer experiences, but well, I'll let you discuss and kind of see what some of the questions we might have had along here. And I don't think I can.
Can you see the chat, Katie?
I cannot. Let me see if I can find it. Chat. There we go.
Got it.
It was not drug related. The criminal conviction. Yeah, so I'll give you a bit of, when we go over previous applications, we kind of look at where did they land in the process. Because of the change in the MCAT policy, this applicant did not meet our minimum standards for 2 of the applications and was not selected to interview in a previous one. Her personal, oh, I have another slide. That helps. Her essays were demonstrated a notable amount of empathy for others across all of her short answers and her personal statement. Her personal statement tied her background and experiences and interwove them with a meaningful patient experience that she had witnessed shadowing in an emergency room, possibly working in the emergency room. But had witnessed and how she related those to her own family, her own disadvantage that she had experienced, and it was very, very well woven. And then her secondary essays, which are our secondary questions, we reserve the right to change them from year to year, but we haven't a lot. We kind of, once one has worn out its welcome, we'll change it. But we ask things about when they've had difficult feedback and how they've reacted, and what of their lives would lead them to, what else do we ask? We have a number of years ago now, 3 years ago maybe, we changed our prerequisites from required coursework to recommended competencies. So we ask a question about that in terms of letting applicants let us know anything outside of their academic record that we can see, that the screeners can see what they've done to accomplish those competencies. And her essay on that was really great, talking about her experiences in food service and really laying out the ways in which she'd acquired transferable skills that would she'd take with her into her practice. Really a lot of drawing on personal reflections from her experiences, really, as I mentioned, empathetic and very patient focused in a lot of her discussions. She had 8 letters of recommendation. 3 were from professors. 2 were from employers outside of healthcare related experiences, 2 from her volunteer and research experiences, and 1 from a clinical experience. They all were very glowing. As Dr. Politano had mentioned, letters don't often do damage, but the lack of a letter can provide questions. And she really fit all of the big meaningful experiences were caught in there, and they all spoke to her hardworking. One of the letters from one of her work experience, no, one of her professors that had talked about highlighting that she had been working full-time while going to school full-time, kind of reiterating some of the hard work and diligence that she put into her education, and described her as mature, dedicated, and a valued member. So that is all that I had about her application. So yeah, the 8 letters of recommendation. Our interviewers do the primary dive into the letters of recommendation. The screeners are generally looking for red flags, or if they have questions about an applicant's experiences, we'll read more deeply into the letters. The interviewers really are the ones that are doing the majority of looking into the letters. And yes, our committee discussed that they appreciated her determination, and that she was continuing to work and expose herself to different aspects of healthcare along the way. Worked very well in her favor. Yes, so there was an upward trend in her GPA, and the narrative of her experience definitely explained a lot of the early struggles, but the committee did recognize, well, the screeners did recognize the academic risk inherent to this application, but determined that the coursework there was more concern around the MCAT, but that the coursework stabilized in a way that led to, I mean, she did get an interview, so it was not enough. Our academic concerns are really the piece that will hold people back from getting an interview, is the biggest component there. Any other questions, or I'll launch into, do we have time for my number 2, or we can stop?
Well, no, it's good. Do you have a result of what happened to this applicant?
All things, unless something changes between now and August, she'll be matriculating in our class.
Awesome. Can we do a very fast, like this will be speed round, super MMI, but not even a full 8 minutes or 6 minutes. It can be like 4. But we'd love another case study because they're so informational and we learn so much.
All right, applicant B from Washington, which we get a lot of people that are like, but I live in Vancouver. It is practically Portland, but for our good intents and purposes, it is a different state. So Washington fits the out-of-state superior category in terms of our mission-based. Applying to the MD program, first-time applicant, not a URM, from a suburban area, not a first-gen college student, he, him pronouns. Who, move the chat so I can read this, had a bachelor's degree in business from Brown, more stronger academics across the board, was a 4-year Division I lacrosse player, had some activities connected to lacrosse in addition to the other pieces, had multiple research experiences, 2 years of scribing in various emergency departments, so still focused in emergency medicine, but a variety of settings. 250 hours of physician shadowing in a number of different settings, and some pretty noteworthy medical volunteerism experiences. You'd think a 1.5 years in, I would be used to the 2 computers. There we go. Personal statement was an interesting one, spoke about reflections of recognition of privilege that he has in his life, and how he's used it as a motivator to serve the underserved. Reflecting on meaningful patient care experiences. He's done a lot of volunteering with Portland Street Medicine with the houseless population in town. Secondary applications, did draw from personal experiences, shared reflections. A couple of them came across as more self-focused and a little bit less, not concerningly non-empathetic, but it wasn't the huge takeaway. Committee letter and letter packet from Brown. The individual letters were from undergrad professors, a letter from the Brown lacrosse coach, a letter from a physician that he shadowed, and they were all complimentary. None of them were like, I would have this person be my doctor tomorrow, but no red flags at all. And I think that is what I have for that one. He was solid on paper. One thing, so he did interview, and I think we've heard back from him. I think he will also. I kind of cheated. I didn't give a bad one, but I did want to highlight a couple of details about them. In that he, very typical, he fit, he has ties to the state in the sense that even though he's out of state with superior academics, he has experiences in Portland and has lived across the border. So that's a place where it does not change his mission-based group in terms of our process, but it does focus, it does give us a sense that he is tied to the greater Portland community. So it's definitely something that if applicants have that tie to show us where that is, it's helpful to weave in where they can. And yes, interview performance was very key because we have lots of applicants that are great on paper, but if they're not distilling their experiences in a way that shows that they've learned something from them and are able to be looking through other people's eyes, then all of the box checking in the world can't get them too far. So.
Well done. That was, yeah, that was 4 minutes. That was nice job.
Oh yes, he was admitted.
He was.
Mm-hmm. And so far will be coming here, but that's also one of those that this time of year we'll see what happens between now and August.
Right. Well, we are exactly at time. Thank you very, very much to Katie and Dr. Politano. Wanted to make sure I got that right. For presenting today. This was amazing. We learned so much from your experiences, and we really, really appreciate the time that you took to talk to us, the Western region, and all of our visitors from across our nation. I neglected to put emails in the chat. Unfortunately, I promised to do that, and I didn't. So I'm going to do that very, very quickly before I have a chance to scoot out. Actually, I don't think I have yours, Dr. Politano. What you had sent me earlier. Yeah. So if you could pop that in, if you want, only if you want, because you know advisors, we will take you up on emailing you with questions if we have them.
I just put it in the chat for you guys.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Katie, too. All right. So this concludes our allopathic case study session. Thank you so much all for coming. We really appreciate your participation, your questions. Even as a seasoned advisor, I learned a whole lot from my peers and the people presenting. So have a wonderful rest of your evening. We have 2 more things going on tonight at the same time. First is if you are interested in participating in the regional conference in 2 years in 2023, there's a Zoom link for chatting with Charlie, and we are excited to expand our committee. And then we also have a diversity, the Committee for Diversity and Inclusion is also meeting at 4 o'clock. There's the Zoom link in your program. We really hope you take advantage of some of these opportunities to meet other advisors. We're pretty cool. We like hanging out with each other and getting to know each other. And these are 2 neat committees to just see what's going on. Thank you again to Keck, School of Medicine, and OHSU, Katie and Seth. I really appreciate your time. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.